So my very, very, very favorite figure in history is Nicholas Copernicus, and today we're going to talk about Copernicus and the Copernican shift on the Wonderful World of Marketing, featuring me, your host, Grad Kahn. And Copernicus obviously lends his name to the Copernican shift that we talk about so often in these Wonderful World of Marketing episodes. So Copernicus had an interesting challenge, which he was a deacon in the Catholic Church. He was an astronomer, and he was Polish. It was really cool. I'm half Polish, so feel a real kinship with Copernicus. And so anyway, so he had been asked to create a better calendar. And the Catholic Church was in this situation where they were following a Ptolemaic view of the universe. Ptolemy was a philosopher of the ancient world, and he had created a view of the world and the universe where the world was the center of the universe, and the sun, the moon, the stars rotated around the earth. And quite frankly, I mean, if you stand in a field, try this. I'd recommend everyone should do this. I've done it many times. Just stand in a field for a couple of days. You'll notice in the morning the sun comes up over here and it goes right overhead and it goes down over there. Stars come up and they move across the sky. And then the next morning, boom, sun comes back on the other side again and goes over and goes around. To a land-based observer, it's not crazy to assume that the Earth is flat and unmoving and everything else is rotating around it. And that was a view of the world that the ancients had. The problem with that view of the universe is it's very difficult to predict a bunch of things, like the retrograde motion of Mars in the sky, actually when Easter is going to occur, when the solstice is going to occur. They become quite challenging in that type of mechanical universe. And so what they had done is they built quite a few calculations to try to keep refining the model. And they got close, but it was never quite right. They were always off by a little bit. And Copernicus worked on it for quite a while. And then one day he had a Eureka Moment because he started thinking out of the box. And he said, hey, maybe Ptolemy wasn't right. Right, let me think about this in a completely different way. And he came up with a Copernican view of the universe, whereas the Earth goes around the sun. And today, most, not all, well, most people believe that that is true. And if you're interested in the people who don't believe it's true, there's a wonderful set of resources on the web. But this is the view of the universe that when you actually take this view, all the calculations fall into place. It became easy to predict the calendar, and of course it predicted the physical universe more accurately. Copernicus wasn't a fool, though. I mean, he knew that if he was going to propose this very out-of-the-box Eureka solution, he would be branded a heretic. For those of you who don't know what heresy is, let's just call it a bad thing in the late 1500s. Copernicus held on to his conclusions, published it as a book, and the legend has it that it was handed to him as he died, which is pretty cool. And generally, this whole discovery has been credited with the creation of the scientific revolution. And a lot of what we enjoy today is directly related to this Eureka Moment that Copernicus had, which I think is super cool. The Copernican shift was not something that he invented. He didn't invent a new thing. What he did is he said, I'm observing a perception of the universe this way, and then there's a reality which is this way, and I want to match the perception to the reality to be able to explain what's happening in real terms. And it was this matching of perception and reality that allowed people to start making accurate scientific predictions of the universe that we are in. And that, to me, is really the trick in a lot of what we do generally as people, and certainly in business, which is what's really going on and how do we actually match that to what we should be doing. The biggest mistake we tend to make in marketing, and marketers make this mistake all the time, is to assume that you are your target. Typically, a marketer is nothing like their target. And even just listening to focus groups really doesn't do the trick. You've really got to dig into the minds and do site visits and really spend a lot of time with your prospects to really understand the way they live their lives and the way that they use your products. Because if you just assume it from your own angle, you're assuming it from a product angle, which is much deeper product knowledge, and you're also coming at it from a sort of set of unconscious biases. Because you're going to use your product a certain way, you'll tend to assume everyone else is doing the same thing. So whenever I hear a marketer say something like, well, I don't like watching advertising, or I never click on stuff like that, why would anyone else? Or I don't like to do this because I don't do it somehow, I know that person has stopped being a marketer and they've started being something else, and I don't know what that is. A marketer is someone who can sit outside their body and sit outside themselves and say, what's really going on in the universe? And how do I make sure that just because I observe the sun going up and around the earth, and it seems, gosh darn it, like, man, that sun seems to be going around in circles around the planet, just because it appears to be that way, doesn't mean it is that way. And I think, That's why I name everything I do after Copernicus. So that's all now for Copernicus. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the impact of Copernican thinking on applications. And we're going to start to dig into where the world's going from application-centric to task-centric interfaces. And that's going to be a super fun discussion. I'm really looking forward to it. See you on the next edition of The Wonderful World of Marketing, featuring me, Greg Cohn.